Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria remains one of the most infamous figures of the 20th century. To some, he was a ruthless criminal who plunged Colombia into decades of terror. To others, especially in Medellin's poorest neighborhoods, he was remembered as a benefactor who built homes, schools, and soccer fields. His life was a contradiction of charity and cruelty, power and paranoia, ambition and self-destruction. Understanding Pablo Escobar means understanding not only the man himself, but also the social, political, and economic conditions that allowed him to rise. Early life and origins. Pablo Escobar was born on December 1, 1949, in Rio Negro, a small town near Medellin, Colombia. He grew up in a lower middle-class family. His father was a farmer, and his mother was a schoolteacher. From an early age, Escobar displayed ambition, confidence, and a willingness to bend or break rules to get what he wanted. As a teenager, he reportedly sold fake diplomas, smuggled cigarettes, and engaged in small-time theft. These early crimes were not just about money, they were about power and recognition. Escobar briefly attended the Universidad Autónoma Latinoamericana in Medellin, where he studied political science. Though he never completed his degree, his exposure to politics influenced him deeply. He admired powerful figures and dreamed of becoming a respected leader. Even early on, he reportedly declared that he would rather be a grave robber than live in poverty. That hunger for wealth and influence would define his entire life. Entry into crime. In the early 1970s, Escobar began moving into more serious criminal enterprises. He became involved in car theft, kidnapping, and smuggling electronics. One of his earliest ventures included stealing tombstones and reselling them after sanding off the names. By the mid-1970s, Escobar discovered what would make him unimaginably wealthy: cocaine. At the time, cocaine was becoming increasingly popular in the United States, particularly among affluent communities. Colombia's geographic position, weak institutions, and widespread corruption made it an ideal hub for the drug trade. Escobar quickly realized that controlling transportation routes and distribution networks could yield massive profits. He entered the cocaine business at exactly the right moment. The rise of the Medellin cartel. By the late 1970s, Pablo Escobar had become one of the key leaders of what would later be known as the Medellin cartel. Alongside figures such as Carlos Leder, José Gonzalo Rodríguez Gacha, and the Ochoa brothers, Escobar helped create a highly organized drug trafficking empire. Cocaine was smuggled from Colombia to the United States using planes, boats, submarines, and human couriers. At the height of its power, the Medellin cartel controlled an estimated 70–80% of the global cocaine supply. Escobar was earning billions of dollars per year, so much money that he reportedly spent thousands each month just to replace cash damaged by rats or moisture. In the 1980s, Forbes magazine listed him among the world's richest men, with an estimated net worth of over $20 billion. Power, fear, and plata o plomo. Escobar ruled through a combination of extreme violence and strategic generosity. His philosophy toward law enforcement and politicians was simple: plata o plomo, silver or lead. Accept the bribe or face death. Judges, police officers, journalists, and politicians who resisted him were often assassinated. Under Escobar's command, Colombia experienced unprecedented levels of violence. Car bombings, targeted assassinations, and mass killings became common. Entire neighborhoods lived in fear. Escobar ordered the murder of hundreds, possibly thousands, of people, including civilians. One of his most notorious acts was the bombing of Avianca Flight 203 in 1989, which killed all 107 people on board. The intended target was a presidential candidate, but he was not even on the plane. The attack shocked the world and cemented Escobar's reputation as a terrorist as much as a drug trafficker. Political ambitions. Despite his criminality, Escobar desperately wanted legitimacy. He saw himself not just as a kingpin, but as a future political leader. In 1982, he successfully entered politics as an alternate member of Colombia's Congress. He donated large sums to community projects and portrayed himself as a champion of the poor. However, his political career was short-lived. When Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla publicly exposed Escobar's criminal past, Escobar was expelled from Congress. Soon after, Lara Bonilla was assassinated, an act widely attributed to Escobar. From that point forward, Escobar became the Colombian state's most wanted man. War against the state. The Colombian government, under pressure from the United States, intensified its efforts to capture Escobar. A key issue was extradition. Escobar feared extradition to the United States more than anything, believing he would lose all control there. His violent campaign escalated whenever extradition laws were enforced. In response, Escobar launched a full-scale war against the Colombian government. Police stations were bombed, judges were killed, and journalists were silenced. Medellín became one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Ordinary Colombians paid the price for Escobar's refusal to surrender. La Catedral, a prison like no other. In 1991, Escobar negotiated a controversial deal with the Colombian government. In exchange for surrendering, he would avoid extradition and be allowed to build his own prison. The result was La Catedral, a luxurious compound featuring a soccer field, bar, jacuzzi, and panoramic views of Medellín. La Catedral was a prison in name only. Escobar continued running his criminal empire from inside, holding parties and ordering executions. When the government attempted to transfer him to a real prison in 1992, Escobar escaped. The hunt began again. The final manhunt. After his escape, Escobar became increasingly paranoid and isolated. The Colombian government formed an elite police unit called the Search Bloc, supported by U.S. intelligence agencies. At the same time, a shadowy vigilante group known as Los Pepis, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, emerged, targeting Escobar's associates and family members. Escobar was constantly on the move, hiding in safe houses across Medellín. His once vast empire crumbled as allies were arrested or killed. He relied heavily on phone calls to his family, which ultimately led authorities to track his location. Death of Pablo Escobar. On December 2, 1993, one day after his 44th birthday, Colombian security forces located Escobar in a middle-class neighborhood of Medellín. After a brief rooftop chase and gunfight, Escobar was shot and killed. There has been ongoing debate about whether Escobar was killed by police or took his own life, as he had often said he would never allow himself to be captured alive. Officially, authorities maintained that he was killed by gunfire during the raid. Legacy and impact. Pablo Escobar's death marked the end of an era, but not the end of Colombia's drug trade. Other cartels, such as the Cali cartel, quickly filled the vacuum. While violence decreased in Medellín over time, the scars of Escobar's reign remain. Today, Escobar is both condemned and mythologized. His story has been dramatized in books, films, and television series, often blurring the line between reality and legend. For many Colombians, this glamorization is painful, as it overlooks the immense suffering he caused. Escobar's legacy is a cautionary tale about unchecked power, corruption, and inequality. He exploited poverty and weak institutions to build an empire, but his reign left a trail of destruction that Colombia is still healing from. Conclusion. Pablo Escobar was not simply a criminal mastermind or a folk hero. He was a product of his environment and a man who made deliberate, devastating choices. His life illustrates how ambition without restraint can destroy not only an individual, but an entire society. While his name continues to fascinate the world, the true story of Pablo Escobar is one of tragedy, violence, and lost potential on a national scale.